Coming up on our next installment of America's Hope, at the age of 14, he was growing up in Tel Aviv and saw crime happening all around him. He escaped to America to pursue his American dream. We'll hear the story of Izek Shomof. And then we'll talk about walking in faith with Craig Syracusa. All that coming up on America's Hope. Good evening, I'm Kelly Wright, and this is America's Hope, and we're glad that you could join us this hour. Wherever you are, we're hoping that you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter. Tonight, we're going to introduce you to two incredible men with inspiring stories and how they've turned their lives into messages of hope just by the way they live. We'll be talking to Izek Shomof, who has an incredible story of growing up in Tel Aviv and then moving to America to pursue his American dream. And then we'll meet Craig Syracusa, who has a story that you want to hear about because it's all about faith and it's all about walking in faith. Let's get started. And so my first guest tonight is someone who is living an incredibly inspirational story. He grew up surrounded by crime, immigrating to America. Izek Shomof is from Tel Aviv. But while growing up, he was working hard to understand what life was like, and we're going to hear his story tonight about how he left an area that was crime-ridden. He saw a lot of crime going on in Tel Aviv, and as a result, came to America to pursue his American dream, and he's living it out loud and using his platform, by the way, to help the homeless. Welcome to our program tonight, Izek Shomof. Thank you for being on the program tonight, sir. It's good to see you, Izek, and thank you for sharing your story with us. So listen, as I was reading your story and your bio, I was amazed, and of course, there was a movie made about your life, For the Love of Money, but let me ask you, what was it like growing up surrounded by crime and violence and even a mafia-type situation in Tel Aviv?
First of all, hi, thank you for inviting me. How is it? I was a young, starting my teenage, at the age of 14, I came to America, but at the age from the age of 10 to 14, my mother, together with my brother, my older brother, he's 15 years older than I am, so he was 28, 29. With my mother, they opened up a restaurant in Tel Aviv, Israel. And at a later time, my brother, Jacob, decided to expand the restaurant into the back room. He created an illegal casino in the back room. It was about 8, 9 poker tables and other gaming. And nothing good came out of it, of the casino in the back. So it started inviting the wrong people to that backroom casino, and nothing but trouble came out of it.
So when you saw that trouble going on in Tel Aviv, what did you experience in terms of the dangerous aspects of seeing that illegal casino being operated?
Well, I was very mature, 11, 12-year-old kid. And I used to hang around in my mom's restaurant and sometimes serving beers and cigarettes and all that kind of stuff to the guests in the back, to the clientele in the back room. So I've seen a lot of arguments, fights, fist fights sometimes out of games. Was not pleasant, but again, I was a kid. I thought that this is a normal thing, so I didn't take much of it.
You know, you tell that story, and you're speaking, of course, growing up in Tel Aviv, and it sounds very much like an American story where a child is growing up perhaps in New York City or in Chicago or in a rural area where there's a lot of gang activity and criminal activity. Did crime victimize your family in any way?
Well, in a good way, in a bad way, in a good way. Um, there was a huge fight broke out in the casino. That's what led to shut down the casino and moving to America. And my brother got shot. He was hurt. He was wounded. He spent a couple of nights in the hospital. Got lucky, did not get killed. And uh, and then my brother decided that this is it. We're shutting down the casino. A little time later, my mother shut down the restaurant, and that's what led my older brother, Jacob and Abe. Abe is about 4 years younger than Jacob. He was 25, newly married. Decided, both of them with their family, decided to move to LA.
All right, so by age 18, you're part of this radical change that's going on in your life, leaving your home of Tel Aviv to pursue life in Los Angeles. How did you support yourself in a brand new world, far away from the life that you knew in Tel Aviv?
No, I was 14 and I was very connected to my older brothers and I missed them a lot. I have not seen them in 3 or 4 months. On my 14th birthday, my mom surprised me with a ticket to LA, go visit your brothers. I was supposed to be here for 30 days, summer vacation. So I took that flight. I came to LA. I was amazed. I mean, Israel back then, back in the early 70s, was only a 20, 25-year-old state, freshly new. It was not as improved and as beautiful as LA. When I arrived here, I was amazed. I stayed at my brother's home. When the time come to go back, my brother said, "Stay here, and we are going to be working on bringing mom and dad to LA." So I stayed, went to Van Nuys High School, and then from there, a few months later, my parents immigrated to LA too.
So during this time, then, Isaac, as I understand, you actually bought a burger restaurant at 16. How did that happen? And when you sold it, what did that lead to?
So how did I get to the restaurant at that age? Again, I'm a 14, 15-year-old now. A 15-year-old kid, seeing my mother working as a maid, I did not like it, and I asked her to quit that job, and I said, I will get a job, and she told me, look, you do not want me to quit. I need to basically pay the bills at home. Your dad has not yet found a job. And I said, I will go get a job. So I found a job in a burger joint myself at the age of 15. So I started flipping burgers in the joint. I was doing very well, and I've seen how the old Jewish couple that went that burger joint, they were doing very well. They were making good money. So I liked the idea. I said, you know what? Maybe it's easy. I can open up a joint myself. So I drove. Now I'm almost 16. I hate to say it. I hate to admit it, but I was driving illegally, even though
Yeah.
I was. You get your driving license at the age of 16. But I started driving a month or two before my age of 16. So I drove in downtown, and I have seen a burger joint that just shut down. I had the opportunity to lease it out and went to my parents and asked them for a loan, and they refused to give me the loan in the beginning. And then later on, they agreed to lend me $5,000, and I opened up my first joint. And then from there, that's how my career started. I dropped out of high school. I'm not happy to say it, but that's the true fact. Dropped out, did my first burger joint, did well, sold it for a profit, did another one, Same thing, sold it for a profit, and did the third one, same thing, sold it with a huge profit, and now I got myself about $50,000 saved at the age of 17 or almost 18.
Wow, that's great. And so from there,
Fifty
you
thousand dollars saved back then, it's equivalent to about $500,000 today.
yeah, absolutely. And so you started your real estate profession. What was it like to get into that very competitive field of real estate?
It's not. I'll tell you how it happened. Again, I'm driving down on Pico Boulevard. I'm a car guy from a very young age in my life. I was always obsessed, literally obsessed with cars, um, and I wanted to open up a mechanic shop or a body shop. One day I'm driving on Pico Boulevard in LA, and I've seen an old gas station just shut down, and there was a sign on it that says for sale or lease. I called the number. It was an old Jewish guy, owner of the property, and he basically, he saw me, a young guy trying to buy the real estate from him. He asked me how old I am. I told him I'm 18 years old. I have the money and I have all that stuff. He said, I called, the reason I called him is I wanted to rent it, not lease it. I did not want to buy it. So he said, let me give you a piece of advice. If you have an opportunity to buy the real estate and don't lease it. So I had the opportunity to buy it off of him again with the help of my parents, and I started my business there. And that how I started my business. At a later time, 2 years later, I decided to demolish the old gas station and build auto bays, 10 stalls, auto bays, and rent it out. And by leasing it out, it started generating me $10,000, $15,000 rent a month. And I refinanced that property and went on and did another one and another one. And before you know it, at the age of 22, 23, I had about 3 different locations.
Good for you, Isaac. I mean, here you are, a young man, a teenager, actually coming from a different country, Tel Aviv. You come to this country, you see the American dream, and you start tasting it by investing in it and growing. And the rest is history. So much so that you went on to create the successful real estate career, and you're joining us from your office now in Los Angeles, which I understand is a very large office that through the years you've been able to build up to. I want to take a break, and when I come back, I want to ask you what you've done beyond your real estate profession in helping people who are homeless. We're talking to Izek Shomof. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to America's Hope. I'm talking to Izek Shomof, who came to this country at the age of 14 from his native country of Tel Aviv in Israel. And of course, people created a movie about your life because of its inspirational impact on people. The movie's called For the Love of Money. Talk to me about what that was like to see your life or some portrayal of your life on the screen out of Hollywood.
So at the later time, when it's about 12 years ago, someone approached me and says, you have an interesting life story and I'd like to write a script about your life. And him and I, me and the script writer spent time together, and he loved it so much. And we end up making that movie For the Love of Money. And the reason I called, we named it, we titled it For the Love of Money. It's because most people love money, because money, what makes the world goes around. And all the money I made, and I'm a very, very successful businessman. I made a lot of money in my lifetime, and everything that I have done it in a legitimate way. Fairness, fair, it's very, very important. Everything that you do it in a fair, correct, honest way, and you will succeed. So the movie that I made, I showed an example of people I grew up around, and one of them is my cousin, and how my cousin immigrated to America and chose to go the other way versus the clean and legitimate way, and start making money by being a huge drug dealer. Uh, and He ended up buying a huge mansion in Beverly Hills. He bought another mansion in Tel Aviv, Israel. He was driving the most beautiful cars. He was so-called living the American dream, but not exactly. Before you know it, few years later, he got killed on the streets of LA. I mean, another gang shot him down, killed him, put 100 bullets into him. And I am trying to explain to the new up and coming generation that I love money myself too, and I made money in a very legitimate way, and that is the correct way, and being honest, transparent. So there is a lot of opportunities. There is good money to be made if you're doing the legitimate, correct way, honest
I,
way.
I love how you're sharing that, and it's important because anyone watching this will understand that you do it the old-fashioned way with honesty, integrity, and you go out and you earn it. You have just released your autobiography, Dreams Don't Die. What's your message to people in America and around the world who feel they can't overcome the nightmare of living in a negative and dangerous environment, similar to what you went through in Tel Aviv?
Well, every human being, they have dreams, dream to success, and I am basically motivating them. Don't let it die out. Go after it. And if you do it again, I repeat myself, in a legitimate, correct way, there is no reason for you not to succeed. And then you have to be motivated, you have to be a go getter, ambition. But everything that you do, if you have that, you do it with honesty and legitimately, you'll succeed.
I love that. I love that. You have made it your personal mission. This is the thing I really love about your story, Isaac. You have made it your personal mission to help people in need, particularly the homeless. And the reason why I love that about you is because you've amassed all this wealth, but you have not forgotten where you came from, nor have you forgotten those who are down and out, and they might just need a second chance. So, based on what you do to serve as an advocate for the homeless, what's your recommendation to all of us in terms of how we can join you and others in caring for the least of these?
In regards to the homeless, look, my office is situated in downtown LA. A lot of my projects, it's in downtown LA. And unfortunately, in downtown LA, you have a lot of homelessness because Skid Row is not too far away from my office. So you see hundreds of them on the streets of LA. I reached out to them. I spoke to them personally. I hired people to go and talk to the homeless people. Unfortunately, there is a good amount of homeless people out there that do not need to be homeless. It's not that they don't have a place to go. They do have a place to go. They just choose to be on the street because their parents or their husband or wives or brothers and sisters telling them, if you want to be home with us, stop doing drugs. Stop abusing alcohol and doing drugs. So they elect to just leave home and go be on the streets because they find what they need on the street. So I went to our elected official and I said, providing homes to homeless people is not the only solution. What I have seen and what I believe that can be done to those people is rehabilitate them, provide them with the proper and the correct services to get them off drugs, get them off alcohol, create job training for them, find jobs for them, have them go through a 6 months of training in a way or healing sessions or whatever it is, and those people potentially do not need to rely on the government for the rest of their life. Of course, yeah, there is a good amount of homeless people that have mental health issue, They have to be addressed in different way, but good amount of those homeless people out there, there is a way to correct them. There is a way to repair them. I have the 1.8 million square feet. I'm willing to do all the build out. I'm willing to do a life rebuilding center for the homeless people here.
Isaac, I appreciate you sharing your insights to this. They're personal in nature. You've experienced it. You know the lay of the land there. And I appreciate you also talking about the fact that there are Palestinians and Israelis who have worked together and still strive to do that, even in the midst of this horrible development that's been unfolding in the Middle East. The final question that I have for you, and first of all, I would love this conversation with you and the inspiring story that you've given us and that you've lived. What is your hope for America?
Again, I'm an optimistic guy. I love the United States of America as much as I love Israel. I believe good things will come at the end of the day. It's just that I'm neither Republican or Democrat. I'm a very centrist guy. And I think lately what the United States of America is doing a lot of handout. And they are not looking for a way feeding people to work, allowing people to stay at home and doing handouts. There is a lot of money being given out to people, and I'm against it. I have 5 kids myself, and I raise them in a way. If you want to live a good life, get a job, be a doer, be productive, and you can live a life. I am a successful human being. I have not handed to them nothing for free if they don't earn it. And all of my kids, thank God, are doing very well. So I'm saying the United States of America should do the same to their own people. Don't just do handout, motivate them, create jobs for them, motivate them to work and not just stay home and get money. And in regards to immigration, I am very much for America. If they want to open up the borders for immigrant, which is all good. I am one of those immigrants. I am for immigration. But open the door for immigrants from Europe that they want to come down here, in Russia and Ukraine, educated people. I always use the example of when I was in Dubai and I was sitting in an exclusive restaurant, and a beautiful Russian woman came to me and served me as a waitress. And I asked her, where are you from? She says, I'm from Russia. And I said, what are you doing here? She says, looking for a job. I'm looking to support my family in Russia. And I said, why don't you come to America? She says, I cannot get a visa. They don't allow me. They don't give me no visas. And I said, how much are you making here? She says, I'm making only $800 a month. I said, can you survive with $800 here in Dubai? And she says, yeah, I live with $400 a month, and I'm sending $400 to my family in Russia. I said, well, come to America, come through the border. It's illegal. You'll find a better job here. She started laughing. So I'm saying for our government to start open the borders to European and to basically collect more of the educated people that can provide to America in a positive way. Again,
Isaac,
I'm not against immigration. I'm not against immigration people that they need, refugees coming from wherever they're coming from. But again, open the border for a little bit of more, how would I say it in a politically correct way, more quality, more educated.
Isaac, I want to thank you for joining us on America's Hope and sharing your story, an incredible story, and it's good to see that you are using it wisely and using your platform to help others, as you've talked about throughout this this interview today. Izek Shomof, I appreciate you so much, and like you said, the dream does not die. Let the dream keep on living. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
America's Hope continues in a moment. And welcome back to America's Hope. My next guest is a 5-time Emmy-nominated television personality and producer. He is currently the executive producer and host of Walk in Faith. Craig Syracusa is the host and executive producer of that particular program, and he also excels as a writer, director, producer, and actor, and I guess you could say he's kind of busy. And we like busy. Craig, thanks for joining us on America's Hope, man. You know, you and I have known each other for quite some time now.
Yes.
Working here in the New York City area, #1 market in the world. You've done so much to actually push the message of hope and faith and love. I got to ask you, man, what compels you to keep doing that?
Thank you. Well, I mean, you know, it goes back. So when I was young, you know, I had this foundation of faith from my grandmother and my mother, and then as I've gotten older, or when I was in college, I sort of lost my way like most people. And it was really a trip to Fatima. I went on a pilgrimage to film this documentary, and I had this awakening from the Holy Spirit, and it was that day that I really changed my life. And since that day, I look back at how I saw God was evident throughout my life, and he was always chasing me. So anytime I start to question, like maybe I should go in a different direction or do something else, I remember that the sacrifice that he made, but how he chased me down. And I say, how could I give up what he's done for me? And it just keeps me moving and compels me to just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, you know, and I should mention that your show, Walk in Faith, is a great program. I recommend anybody to watch it. You've interviewed a list of stars that people would long to have interviews with. Give me some of the names. I don't mind you name dropping here.
That's a blessing. And, you know, I've always been interviewing people, but the minute I focused on their faith, and I really, because working Entertainment Tonight, you know, I didn't have the opportunity in the beginning to interview stars, and I would always think and reflect, if only I was able to ask them inspirational questions, which led me down the path of asking about faith. Years later, I was able to do some of that through Entertainment Tonight in Canada, but I always had this seed, and the seed was planted that I wanted to find out more about who they were. I wasn't so concerned about the movie or the personality or the persona. I wanted to get to know the person. And the minute I started to do that, and it was real, it wasn't just for ratings. Like, I wasn't there to create a story. I was there to tell their story. And these celebrities would open up. And you could see in their eyes, right? I studied Meisner, so I can see when I was making the connection, and I would look at the mannerisms and try to tell, you know, just if we were connecting. And I'm very vulnerable and open. And these stars would just want to talk to me, which led to me interviewing the Martin Sheens and the, you know, Bob from Goya and Mark Wahlberg and, I mean, Dr. Oz. I mean, I've interviewed at this point thousands of people, and, you know, sometimes I don't have the time, so I say no, unfortunately, but, you know, I usually don't even have to go after them. A lot of times their publicists will call me and say, hey, they're working on a new film. And I just make that connection, and I become friendly with them. Mario Lopez, and I still have a relationship with a lot of these people that I've sat down with.
Yeah, let's talk about Mario Lopez and Mark Wahlberg, because they've made their faith very, very known. I mean, these are celebrities who wear their faith on the sleeve, and it comes from the heart. It isn't some sort of put on. It's actually real. So when you're in their company and you're interviewing them, what sticks out mostly about a Mario Lopez or a Mark Wahlberg?
Mark Wahlberg, I mean, when I sat with him, it was for Father Stew. He's Mark, so he's got this. But I've seen him on the carpet, and as a kid, people would say, "You look just like Mark Wahlberg." So when I saw him, I was wondering if he was going to recognize me and say, we look alike." But I text Mario Lopez before I went in the room. I said, "Hey, I'm going to interview Mark," and I don't know if he reached out to him, and I know Mark's brother Jim pretty well. So I had that dynamic and that relationship, and I've been always comfortable talking to them, and we connected. You know, and there was something there. And then even Mario, when I was with him in LA, and he's in my documentary, and we've spoken after that. I don't talk to him as often as I wish I could, but there's something about them. And I always say it's the Holy Spirit. When you don't know what that is, and there's something special, it's just what I've seen in the presence of them is what you see online or what you see on social media. There's something unique about them, and I think that's really their convictions, but it's the Holy Spirit.
And yet people are responding to them, and you see that sometimes Hollywood is very difficult to break through with faith and hope and love and lifting people up. A lot of times it can be very negative, and the world itself can be that way. There are people who go through a lot of problems in life, and I think from what I've seen with your show, you were seeking to elevate people and lift them up. Talk to me about that.
I mean, really what I want to do is I hope that the questions that I ask, usually what I do is I do a lot of research like you, right? I do a lot of research on these people, and I know everything about them. And then I'm able to sort of just dismiss it and just toss it. But I know everything about them, so when I sit with them, and because I studied acting in Meisner, usually the way I see it is if I'm interviewing a celebrity, I'm trying to think of one that comes to mind. Let's just say it's Dr. Oz, right? And I'll pick up on something they're doing, and it's usually like they'll say something, and it's like a gate. And if you pick up on it, they'll open that gate and they'll share more than they really intended to. And it happens all the time.
All the time.
And not on Zoom though. On Zoom it's difficult.
Yeah, it is.
I'm like, wait, I can't see their eyes. But if you're open to that, you'll say something. Like Nelly, I remember I said something to Nelly, and he was like, "Oh, Michael B. Jordan." He was like, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" And Dennis Quaid. I give you so many examples. And then they say something, and that's the key. That is what I'm trying to get, because that is going to change someone's life.
Absolutely.
Because they've never heard that before.
Absolutely.
And they'll say something, and they're like, I've never shared that before. The other day I did an interview with, I think it was the owner of True Play, and he's like, I've never shared this before. Right. I mean, I've so many stories, the Martin Sheens, and where they just share a story, and that story is what impacts someone's life, what changes someone's life.
And I love that about your show, and I love how you get them involved in sharing so many inspirational aspects about their life. And sometimes when you talk to people who are not celebrities or even celebrities, they'll share those vulnerable moments of what it was like to go through difficulty and challenges and to be tried by the fire, only to come out, as we like to say, as pure gold. What happened for you in your own personal life, Craig, to help you get to that place where you're solid, in your life and in your faith and in your trust, that no matter what kind of obstacle you face, because of your faith, you can overcome it and never lose out on hope?
It really, I would go back to that awakening, that trip in Fatima. I remember just this feeling in Fatima. I was filming. I wasn't there for no, religious experience.
Filming?
It was a documentary on World Youth Day, which is where, 2-3 million people come together. And I was filming these young kids, and I just wanted to follow them and find out, it was a test of faith, like what's going to happen. Some of them went for a vacation, and some of them went for other reasons, and I wanted to see what was going to happen at the end of that pilgrimage. So when I get to Fatima, I have this experience, and I knew it was the Holy Spirit. And I remember calling my mother and just saying, "Mom, sorry, I love you." And she didn't know why, and she didn't understand it. But then the next day we were in Madrid, and there was a storm that just rolled in, and it was really violent storm. And I'm filming, and this tent goes up in the air, and it collapses on everyone, and my camera goes off, and they're dragging everyone out. And my wife calls me. How does my wife know, and she just said, "Something, are you okay?" And I was like, "I can't talk, I'm fine." That experience, the next day I wanted to leave so bad. I was like, I got to get out of here. That was my test of faith. When the sun rose and the Pope spoke, my life changed. I didn't know what changed, but I had to go after and discover it. And it took all those months and years to realize and figure out that God was chasing me this whole time. Wow. So I reflect on that all the time. And then I've had other experiences where I know it was the Holy Spirit, or just like where opportunities come, and I'm very, my convictions keep me up, but I keep myself very focused on what He wants me to do. And I say no to a lot of opportunities, like you probably do. If it doesn't align with His word or His plan for my life, I don't do it. And it makes life a little bit easier, but there are times where you're going to try to glorify God, and the enemy comes, the voice comes, the doubt comes, and you say, I can make a lot more money doing this, or you start to doubt, did I really hear Him? Did I discern? So all of that comes, but I just stay focused on what He told me and His promises, and I just keep moving forward. And I'll get calls like today, an email from Emilio Estevez about a project we're trying to do. Out of nowhere, "Hey Craig, and I'm like, to me, that's God, like people say, winking and saying, okay, one more day.
I'm talking to my good friend Craig Syracusa. We'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back to America's Hope. I'm talking to Craig Syracusa, who is the executive producer and host of Walk in Faith. And the show's been going on for about 7 years now.
Yeah.
So you've talked to all of these celebrities. You've also spoken to a lot of members of the clergy. You've traveled around the world. But man, I am curious, what was it like to be so close to the Pope and actually do a documentary that involved the Pope?
So, that was like one of the best experiences of my life, was to just meet him. We were at JFK Airport, but prior to that, when he arrived to New York, I had this vision, and it was a friend of mine actually him and I spoke about it, and I said I wanted to paint the world's largest mural of the Pope. And I remember calling my boss, CEO at the time, and I said, listen, I have this vision, I have this idea. And he thought I was nuts, like most people. You're going to paint a 130-foot mural of Pope Francis. So coincidentally, if you believe in that, which we don't, it was right next to MSG where he was going to be. So I had this whole idea, and I said to my wife, listen, I'm going to commission this. It was expensive at the time, and I said, it's worth getting fired over. I just knew it was the right thing to do. I said, what are they?
So you took a risk.
I took a risk. And that's the same thing with the show. Is I say to myself, like, what's the worst they're gonna do? Fire me? Like, if I know I'm glorifying God, if I feel like this is what he called me to do and everything's lining up, I do it, right? I pray about it. So I did it. And I didn't paint it, obviously, but that one thing got global attention.
Yeah.
Everyone spoke about it. I knew a professor where he spoke about it in college, and it became the world's largest mural, Pope Francis. And that became something that everyone spoke about, the earned media. It was such an idea. And then Pope Francis at the airport, I got to shake his hand, and I got on TV. I was on his plane. A friend of mine, we were taking pictures. And then like a couple of weeks later, they invited us to an event that was hosted with the UN at the Vatican, where I spoke about my documentary called Ring of Faith, which was about boxing. Really, the thesis is boxing a sin, or how does your gift become a sin? How do we use the platform to glorify God? It was all encompassed in that, and he's in the documentary from afar, and a lot of his, the people that work with the Pope are in the film, giving his perspective, and it was just amazing but that film I was afraid. At first I was like, I'm going to do it. And I had all these sort of validations that I knew God was pushing it along. And then when I got there and I was able to get the Pope, I knew that God was pushing me forward and ordained this project. But it's scary along the way. Even if you're a true believer, the doubt and the fear comes, right? And you just can't let it take root. But I just keep moving forward with all these projects.
What a great experience. What a wonderful experience. What's your message to America?
I want there just to be peace. I know that sometimes it could be a naive idea, but I pray for peace. And I don't like the fact that we're not united. Years ago, I did a documentary, and it was about, this is like college days, and it was about how do we eliminate racism. And I used breakdancing as a way of saying, in dance, just like boxing, we see past the diversity, and we realize we're all the same. We're all brothers and sisters in Christ. So if you can use dancing or boxing or sports as a way of just communicating. So once I started working on projects like that, I saw that we're all the same. So I try to find ways to let people know, even if our exterior is different or we came from different households or different demographics, we're all the same. And I think once we can break that barrier and just look at each other as brothers and sisters, that I love you, I think that's really what we could all learn from. So I try to teach my son that from the beginning. My son is way better than I ever was at 7 years old. I mean, he is so giving and compassionate and loving, and that to me it makes me proud. Like, he goes to a Catholic school and he loves God, and he donates all his money. He's just such a good person. And I look at him and I'm like, wow, and I'm proud of that. And I wish that, I wish everyone had the opportunity to be raised in a household where they have both parents and they can understand the love, but unfortunately the world is not like that. So we need to look at our Heavenly Father and know that he loves us unconditionally. So for me, it would just be that regardless of what you believe, for me, my religion, my faith keeps me grounded, and I love everyone. I really do, and I try to look past. And the one quick story I remember in Israel, we were walking up the stairs in the Holy Sepulchre, and I remember all the groups.
Such a beautiful place.
Beautiful, and the stairs are all like indented.
Yeah.
And my favorite part of the trip was standing there holding people as they went up the stairs. And I did that for like a half hour, and I was so moved by that. And I can look at them in the eyes and say, I knew that if I wasn't there, someone else could have done it. But the point was, if I wasn't there to help them, and I was there, and I didn't care what they looked like, I just helped them. And it really brought tears to my eyes, because I said, that's what's missing. I didn't care. I just wanted to reach out a hand and help them, right?
That's beautiful.
Like Peter. And that's what I gained from one of my experiences from my trip to Israel.
And see, that also, not only is it a matter of wanting to help people, but it displays charity, which is love. It displays grace and mercy and actually justice, and it's doable that we could have justice and mercy at the same time. And the spirit of generosity is what you're, also alluding to. Craig, I've watched your career. What's next for you?
So I felt like this transition in my career. I've always been in TV, first secular world, and then I've been in the faith-based world.
Yeah, because how many? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how many years did you do Entertainment Tonight?
I mean, I started in 2003 when I was right out of school. I thought it was funny because I thought I was the director. I walked in, I faxed my resume, and I showed up, and I was all dressed nice, and the director goes, I didn't know he was the director, go move the table and move this, and I'm like, move? Don't they know who I am? I just finished my last short film. Like, I'm a director, and I called my wife probably, or beeped my wife or girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And then they said, go get coffee. And I realized I wasn't the director, but I was the best guy that got coffee, and I was the best guy to move those tables. And I used to run tape from 42nd, we were at GMA, to 54th Street or to Paramount.
I remember those days.
And I had a tape like this, and I would run the tape, and I would get there, and they would call the director. It's here. It would be like 2 minutes, and then I'd walk back because I was out of breath. But I was the best, or I made myself like, they knew I was really hungry. And then years later, I got the opportunity to do interviews. But at the time, I wasn't ready to do. I had it in my spirit, but I didn't have the experience. And I sat there and I watched Lara Spencer and I watched all the celebrities come on, and I would stare at them and I would learn. And I picked up on going on the carpet and learning from them and seeing what they do and how they interact. And that's really what the seed was planted, but it was planted to talk about faith or inspiration, opposed to, Lindsay Lohan, who was popular at the time.
Yeah, she was. But what you just unpacked right there, that's a lesson to be learned by a lot of young people, and even some of the older ones who think that, they have it all together. Humility really builds your character and your perseverance and your endurance, and gives you that professionalism to be confident and bold in what you're doing today. So kudos to you hanging in there, and thank you for that. So look, what's your hope for America?
My hope for America? I think I would go back to saying unity. I think we all need to be united and see past differences and really just, I hate to say like the good old days, like whatever those are, and but really just to see love, and for me, like COVID, what it did for me was it made me realize how important my family, friends are, and that I don't have control in certain things, and how important it is just to be present when I'm home, when I'm with my family. So, I think just being present and praying for one another and loving one another and smiling and not looking down and just, share a kind word. And there's a pastor that I stole this from, and it was simple. It was always return your shopping cart. And I said that to someone the other day. I was in Florida, and he called me and said, I can't believe you told me that, because now I have to do it. Because that little, no one's watching,
just
right?
that
little thing. How do you do it? You park closer to the return, and you just do it. Because those are the things like I want people to see in me that there's something different. And that's my faith in Jesus Christ. That's that I'm a Christian. And that, all those little things, it's what separates us from other people. And I want them to see it and then say, that's interesting. What's different about them? And that creates the conversation for them to say internally, like, maybe I got to make some changes in my own life. Like, so it's just, I don't know, just trying to follow Jesus Christ as much as you can.
Wow. Craig, I love your boldness. I love your humility. I love your heart. And love you, man. I'm so glad you came by, because it's been a while since we broke some bread together. But thank you for coming to America's Hope and sharing hope in these desperate times in a way that's uniquely your story and the power of your story. Thanks for inspiring people, because I know there are a lot of people watching, especially this time in our country where we're up against so much and we're seeing so many things happen around the world. Thank you for holding on, and thank you for walking in faith.
Thank you. Thank you, my brother. God bless you.
So I'd like to thank our guest tonight, Craig Syracusa, as well as Izek Shomof. And my final word tonight, based on what we've heard through their interviews, is whatever you're going through in life, don't give up on hope, don't give up on faith, and certainly don't let go of love. Love God, love yourself, to keep on pursuing the dream. And as Mr. Shomof has told us, don't let your dream die. And as Craig has stated, keep walking in faith. I'm Kelly Wright. This is America's Hope. Until next time, America, good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your friendly conductor. All aboard the Love Train. All aboard the Love Train, the Love Train, the Love Train. If you don't feel the groove inside, give it a time. Come on, all aboard.
is easy to find if you're listening. The color of light isn't red, black, or white, but it's crimson. We all bleed the same. If you don't feel the groove, it's alright. Just give it time, give it time. Come on, y'all. Get on board.
My America. We agree to disagree, but still live in harmony because we are a family. God bless your America and my America.